Welcome to the Rich in Success podcast, the podcast that aims to define exactly what success means to you and gives you the tools to achieve this in your daily life. Hosted by action-taking mindset coach, world record holder, and successful entrepreneur Matt Hall. Each week, this show brings you motivation, education, and inspiration on how you can live a happier, more fulfilled, and more successful life. Are you ready to take your life to the next level? If so, this is the podcast for you. Now, let today's lessons begin.
Okay, welcome back everybody to the Rich in Success podcast. I am joined today by best-selling author and celebrity life coach, also known as America's life coach, Mr. Stephen Lovegrove. How are you doing, my friend?
It's great to be here. And I always say, though they call me America's life coach, I am happy to connect with people all around the world and great to be chatting with you in a time zone that's not too crazy for either of us.
Love it, love it. So are we just going to go for world life coach then? Like bollocks to just having it as America's. Let's just go worldwide, yeah?
Sure. I'll have to check with my team about that one.
I think just go for it and see what happens. Listen, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on here. Obviously, we first connected literally a week ago on the new craze, the new app Clubhouse. I don't think either of us have managed to have much sleep since this bloody app has started to take momentum. How are you finding it? How's the app serving you? I mean, you've been moderating a lot of panels, right?
Yeah, so out of all the things I could say, I'll just say two things about Clubhouse. Number one, I definitely think at the time of this recording, we're in a season with it. And one of the things I'm very big about is knowing the season that you're in and embracing it temporarily for what it is. So, I got to tell you, as a coach, I see a lot of the ways people are using this app. 3 hours of sleep a night is not sustainable. Do not recommend as a practice of self-care. And I think a lot of the ways that people are using this app is very much based on the pandemic, the circumstances of right now, the newness of the app and this moment that we're in. So I think it's a season. I don't expect myself to use it exactly like this for years to come. But second of all, I think it goes to show you really can energetically connect with your people very quickly and draw in anything from friends to colleagues to clients to, moments to have a chat like this from showing up as yourself there. So it's a lot of fun. We'll see where it goes as more of the world opens back up, but I'm certainly enjoying it for right now.
Yeah, I mean, what's been some of the best moments for you? Are you finding that it's been a really great platform to actually serve you to be able to reach more people? Are you finding that, you're being able to help people that otherwise might not have known about you or even connected with you?
Yeah, so I always look at the difference between where am I showing up as a creator, where am I showing up as a consumer. For me, Clubhouse is probably 80-85% creation, where I'm showing up with mods that I love, I trust, I respect, and I'm trying to just answer questions, help people, add value. On that front, I think probably my favorite thing is when somebody implements. And, there was a guy who came into a room last week and kept implementing. I mean, he showed up in rooms I was in every night, but not with the same question and no action, no progress. He kept implementing. And by the end of the week had sold $50,000 in sales of a brand new product. I was so proud of him. I kept bringing him up to say, like, this is why we do this. So I love it from that standpoint. I also think there's not a single one of us who's an expert in everything. And so, I want to work on more TV projects than ever before this year. I was in a TV, producer room last night. And even if you're a mod or an expert on a lot of stages, I think it's great to, put yourself in the seat of asking a question, asking for what you need, asking for some help. And so there are also spaces where I just go to learn. I'm learning from all of my fellow mods. But yeah, that's kind of my thought process with it right now.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. So obviously you are America's life coach, soon to be after this show, the world's obviously. But I'm interested, what's your journey like? How did you always aspire to be a life coach? How did you get into this position?
Yeah, I didn't. I did always aspire to help people. And I grew up in a fundamental Christian religious cult. It was very strict and bizarre. And so in the world that I grew up in, the only path that I knew is just there's religion. And then maybe I had a little bit of familiarity with like the charity world. I knew there were nonprofits. That was it that I knew in terms of helping people. And nobody in my life taught me about entrepreneurship, investing, building wealth, any of these kinds of things. And so for 20 years of life, I grow up in that world dominated by fear. And I mean, we were taught to be afraid of everything. So if you have a belief system where you're struggling with fear, I understand. But you know what it taught me, Matt, is it taught me that our beliefs create our life. And I saw what it did to people for 2 decades of my childhood and adolescence. I saw what it did for people to believe these things. And so as I went into university, I was trying to figure out who I was, what I believed, what I wanted to do with my life, cut in the right connection at the right time through the internet. I encounter a life coach in New York. He introduces me to this path. And now I help people in a way I didn't even know existed a while ago.
Wow, that's amazing. And I think always, like, what makes the best coaches in general is life experience. This is something I talk about all the time. You can get all the qualifications, all the intellect, all the science, which is great, but you can also find that on Google. Like, any question you've got, for me, it's what's the real adversities you've overcome? What's the real things that you've lived through to tell the tale? Because I believe that that's the best way you help people. And you said there about, like, just living a life of fear where you've pretty much feared everything. And I think that that's one of the key things that holds people back in achieving anything in life is fear. It's often fear of judgment, right? Like, people scared what people might think of them. What's kind of your main advice, and how do you deal with it? Because for you, you're on big TV shows, you're putting yourself out there, you're opinionated, you're getting judged all the time, right? So how do you deal with fear of judgment?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I do think fear holds people back. When you talk about information, one of the things you realize very early on in the world of personal development is information does not automatically equal transformation, right? Which is why people can collect information all day. And I applaud everybody on Clubhouse or with any podcast that's taking notes. I love that. I'm a note taker myself, but often it is that fear that stops people from moving from information to transformation. And I think this is really an identity thing. There's a quote I often like to bring up. It's by a woman named Cindy Trim, and she said, "If you don't choose your I ams, you will always be at the mercy of other people's you ares." And you're right, there is judgment out there. I was on a Clubhouse room moderating my own room for 5 hours yesterday, and someone comes in and just goes, "Stephen, shut the fuck up." So
No
these
way.
things happen. But I want to use that as an example of, like, this isn't just something that was at the beginning of my journey 7 years ago. You're right. There can be judgment and people's opinions and haters at any moment in the journey. But what I know to be true is the more grounded that I am in knowing who I am and in standing in that, the less any of that matters. It's not that it ever goes away completely, but the more grounded in who you are, the less that matters. And, to use a very basic concept that I think Tony Robbins has made famous, we all know about this relationship between desire and fear, right? And I don't think the fear ever fully goes away. But what I know to be true is that when the desire is stronger than the fear, you'll do it anyway. And so a lot of people are focused on the fear and they're spending all of their time. What do I do with the fear? How do I overcome the fear? And I think the answer for a lot of people, honestly, is you got to up the desire. You have to want it more. You have to tap into a deeper level of the desire, because if you do, the desire will be stronger than the fear. And that's very powerful.
Do you know what, as well? I think it's about people are not actually clear on who they are. Like, what are your core values? What do you really believe? What do you stand for? What's the vision? And I think when you get really clear on that and you know that it's ethical and it's aligned with who you truly are, then it's like you said, perfect then. It's not that you don't get fear. I always say, like, it's not that I don't care what people think. Like, given the choice, I'd prefer to be liked. Like, I like to be liked. It's a pretty natural, fundamental human need, right? We'd like to be liked by others. But the difference is when your desire is strong enough and when you're clear on who you are, what your objective is, that's where we can recognize when that emotion's not serving us and that desire to be liked isn't serving us. And that's when we can detach from it, right? And I think this is the thing. I think a lot of people are unaware, like subconsciously just led by emotion all the time. It's like how I'm feeling dictates how I act, right? And sometimes we've got to recognize it's self-awareness. I've got to realize that this is not serving me anymore. And I've got to switch that focus onto what's the desire.
Yeah, and I want to speak to something here quickly, because I literally was just talking with this maybe 3 days ago with a client about this. People pleasing can be disguised as a lot of virtuous sounding things. And so I had a client the other day that I called out and I said, so really, this is just a people pleasing issue. And she said, and she pushed back on it a lot, Matt. And she said, no, no, no. I want to be a good person, and I don't want to be taking advantage of people. And I'm all for being a good person, being ethical, not taking advantage. But when we dug into it, it really wasn't about she was out of integrity or not being ethical. It really was just that fear of perception. And the reason, I think this is so huge for somebody to understand today, the reason that people pleasing feels so vital, even though we all know it's silly, is our inner child is in there saying people pleasing is how I get love, and people pleasing is how I get safety. So if you put yourself out there and the attacks come online, we can say, well, why would you care about a stranger on the internet? Because that inner child is saying, I'm not going to be okay. I'm not going to be loved. I'm not going to be safe. But we have to address that, because otherwise the people pleasing thing will run the show. And it sounds so dumb, but it feels so real to people in the moment.
I think that's great. It's a really great point. I think a lot of people, they don't actually realize that it is based out of a place of fearing what people think. Like you said there with the client, they're like, no, it's not that, it's this. And it's like they're actually not even aware. And it's about going beyond that surface level thinking and asking kind of questions upon questions, right? Because that's where you get to the root of what's really dictating your actions. I think something else that I find time and time holds people back is when they decide they want to achieve more in life and they start to maybe dip their toe in and take action and maybe work with a coach, then starts to kick in that feel of overwhelm. And it's like that, oh my gosh, I'm now having to like take on more. I'm now having to like grow as a person, which takes work. What would you say to somebody if somebody's listening to this now that's feeling like they want to grow, they want to achieve more, they want to be more, do more, have more, but they're just constantly feeling like they don't know if they can do it, it's too much, they feel overwhelmed?
Yeah, it's interesting. Fear of failure is so often the dominant conversation, right? And in the context of so much Clubhouse, how many times have you heard people bring up failure? And I always like to shift the conversation and say, here's the thing. If you are not succeeding right now, failure is not actually that scary to your consciousness, because you're already living in the absence of the dream, the absence of the success. Success, on the other hand, now there's some real overwhelm there. And I don't think people talk about this enough, that who do you have to be to live in success? And can you sustain it? And can you grow into that person? I think people have a lot of fear and overwhelm about that. And I don't think it's talked about enough.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It's the fear of success, right? And it's because I guess as well, it's the responsibility that you have to take on. And once you have a little bit of success, suddenly, I mean, I've got a client, I was speaking to a lady the other day, and she had like, overnight 10,000 followers. She'd done something that was really inspirational. And so overnight, she's got all these people then looking up to her as, you should have all the answers. And then it's like, suddenly there's that level of needing to know all the answers. And I think you're so right. Fear of success can be just as scary as the fear of failure, because I always say it's like you're then backed into a corner where you have to be great, which is a positive pressure, but it's still a pressure nonetheless.
Yeah, I heard a quote once, and I really do not. I always like to give credit, and I don't like to misquote. So I apologize if I'm not getting this quote perfectly right. But the gist of the quote, the spirit of the quote from, I believe, Christine King was, if the light within you is not greater than the spotlight shining on you, the spotlight will crush you. And I think for a lot of people, what happens is something happens. You go viral, you find a strategy that works, you hit the right moment at the right time. And outwardly, you have success in the moment. But if your inner identity, everything is created from the inside out. If your inner identity did not sync up to match the outer success, you're not going to sustain it. You're going to end up sabotaging, or best case scenario, it's just not going to feel good. It's not going to feel right. And so we have to do that identity work. And by the way, I mean, you can watch this play out on the global stage. Look at the people who went viral and it led on a good path. It led somewhere good eventually. And as time progressed, and look at the people who went viral. They had a moment, they had their, 15 minutes of fame, as Andy Warhol says, and then it just was a disaster, or then it just collapsed. The identity is everything.
Yeah, I always say success is an inside job, right? It's all internal, and it's all about how you feel and think about yourself. And I think that's a really important point as well, is people put all the emphasis on these tangible external results and these physical goals. And I think it's really, really important to know the only reason you would chase any goal in life, whether it's to achieve a physical goal, whether it's amount of money in your bank, or to grow a business or a relationship, is always predicated on how it makes you feel. And I think when you can start to identify that, it can take a lot of pressure off the goals as well, because I think people have this like all or nothing mentality. They go all in chasing a goal, and then because they don't get there overnight, they then fall all out of it. And I think once you understand it's just emotions, like emotions come and go, you can then start to genuinely just enjoy the journey, enjoy the process, who you're becoming along the way, what you're learning, including the failures, or should we call perceived failures, because it's all learning, right? And I think remove that pressure. And I think that's been one of the biggest things in my life. People are always saying to me, Matt, like, what's your big goals? What's your big dreams? And I'm like, do you know what? Like, every day is like fucking awesome. Just contributing, giving back, learning, making mistakes, figuring out how to learn from that mistake. When you work on the identity and being the person, by default, these goals get ticked off because your habits are in place, the thoughts are in place, the emotions. So for you, I think another thing as well is having the right people around you. And I'm just interested there about what you said about, coming from a very religious background, a lot of fear. As you've transitioned your identity, I assume you said you had the life coach, but was it quite a lonely journey aside from the life coach? Were there a lot of people that doubted you? Was there a lot of people that tried to hold you back? What was your experience?
So this is a good question, and one that I want to answer in a nuanced way. I think, especially in the industry that we're both in, it's easy to give people the platitudes that like paint a very broad brush over everything. And sometimes the truth is in the complexity a little bit. There were definitely a lot of people who did not stay with me on the journey. I will say that. From a just personally growing and evolving and changing my beliefs, there were a lot of people that was a problem for. And from a business perspective, I love my mom. She doesn't listen to my stuff, so I don't shout her out like she's listening, but I do love my mom. But I always joke about, my mom definitely called me many times and said, why don't you start, get a real job? When is this thing going to be over? So there were definitely a lot of doubters. There were definitely a lot of people who left. But this is the thing that I was really focused on. Whenever I was in that time of transition, I always focused on putting those new people in my life. The way TD Jakes expresses it is people who align with your future, not your past. And it's comfortable to align with people from where we came from. But of course, the people we really want around us are aligned with where we're going. And so that is who I focused on putting into my life. And I always like to talk about this because people get so focused on those outdated people, right? Like, what do I do? Do I stop spending time with them? Do I kick them to the curb, as some coaches would say? And I always challenge people not to focus on the old people that, may not align with you anymore. You focus on aligning with the right people in this moment, the new people, the fresh people, the aligned people for you now, and everything else will rearrange around that. And so that's what I did. I'm not going to say there were no moments of pain of like, damn, they unfriended me. Okay. Like there's been moments, but when you focus on the new people who are aligned with you now, it doesn't have to be as agonizing of a process as I think people sometimes imagine it would be.
It's so interesting, like the commonalities between, when you go on that kind of journey. This is just part of the process. Not everybody's going to like change, but it's always about coming down to like, life's very short, right? And it's a beautiful opportunity. And I want to be the best version of me. I want to experience what I want to experience. And I think you've got to, as you said brilliantly there, align with the right people that actually help you create that vision into a reality, and not necessarily put focus on the people that don't align with you. Like, it's okay to not be liked by them. It's okay that they maybe are not a fan of what you're doing right now, but don't try and like force them to be. Don't try and tell them they're wrong. Just let them do their own thing. You focus on you and attract the right people that are going to help that vision. And I think that's the thing that I find time and time again people struggle with, but it's one of the most valuable things to focus on. Is it's your life, your goals. Not everybody needs to agree with it, kind of thing. Now, obviously, another big thing about achieving goals in any area is making sure you've got the right strategies, the right routine, the right habits in place. So I'm interested from your perspective, do you have like non-negotiables? Do you have a set routine daily that serves you best?
Yeah, so this is again with the Clubhouse context. People are just getting us in the moment here, but this is a question people love to talk about these days, isn't it? Especially at the beginning of a year. And I will share a couple things with this preface. I am not a stickler about if you don't do the routine, your whole day's ruined. If you don't have it right. And I just want to free people. There are successful entrepreneurs I know with no morning routine. There are successful entrepreneurs I know who can't stand meditation. I'm a successful entrepreneur that doesn't like waking up early. So can we start there? So I like to empower people that please don't let this talk of routines, because I know people and every day they're in the ice bath at 4 a.m. And that's great if that fuels you. But there are people who would rather die than do the ice bath at 4 a.m. And I don't want you to think you can't succeed without that. So with that being said, two things that I swear by. Number one, I always start the day on airplane mode. Literally, I mean, this is a non-negotiable for me today. I started the day on airplane mode for at least 20 to 30 minutes before I let the noise or the needs or the notifications of anybody, anything come in. I am present with myself, grounded, centered, connected as I get the day started. That's very important for me. The other thing that I swear by, and I get that a lot of people don't like it, but I do meditation through an app called Sync Tuition. I'm not a brand partner or something. I just love it. But the reason I do meditation and try to do it every single day is Emily Fletcher taught me meditation done right is practicing the letting go muscle. Because what happens when I sit down to meditate is my brain goes, you should be working on this project. And there's a huge part of me, Matt, that wants to stop meditating and go, 2 minutes was enough. I feel reset, and go work on the project. But in that moment, when I choose to sit there and I literally overcome the ego, overcome the thought, and I sit there anyway, I am practicing my letting go muscle. And I just find if you work that muscle in meditation, it's way easier to let it go and stay in the flow through the day. So those are my two things. But again, there's no religious right way you must do it.
That is such a powerful thought. Like having that discipline to allow yourself to take control and just let go. Because isn't that one of the main things that people need throughout a day, is that ability to do that? And I think starting your day with that. Do you know what? I've tried meditation and I've been that guy that's like, I've got shit to do, like exactly like you said, and I've given into that voice. The way you've put that then, I'm ready to try it again.
Matt, listen, I resisted. This is why I shout out Emily Fletcher. She was the one who helped me get the why. Like I had tried it many times and not gotten into it. But here's the thing about it. And Joe Dispenza also has a really valuable insight here. We all know there are parts of our personalities, parts of ourselves that are not serving us, right? How do we overcome that? because it feels natural to us. It just feels like this is my go-to, even if it's not serving us. So Joe Dispenza says, think about when you're in that meditation, you are literally overcoming the part of yourself that's not working for you. Because the crazy shit is going to speak in your brain. And by me sitting there anyway and being like, absolutely not real, not true, not going to get me, by moving past that, it is this empowering thing of it shows you that you are more powerful than even your strongest thought that is not serving you. So try it from that perspective. It might make you feel a little more badass and empowered at the end of it.
I'm sold. I'm actually sold. You. If nobody else got anything out of that bit, I did. I'm doing meditation tomorrow, first thing. You can hold me to that. Absolutely brilliant.
Tell me how it goes, and try Synctuition. It's very high quality audio. They say 20 minutes is as powerful as 4 hours of deep meditation when you do their system. It's incredible. I highly recommend.
Wow, thank you very much. Great recommendation to try there, myself included. So you have got a book, and I'd love to talk about that briefly. The book is called How to Find Yourself, Love Yourself, and Be Yourself. Just give us a bit of a general overview. What can people expect from that book?
Yeah, so that was the book that really started it all for me. I did things in the wrong order, which shows that you can build a business and brand anyway. But I didn't wait until I had a brand and media to write a book. I came out of the gate strong and wrote a book in 2014. Anyway, so that is that book. And where it came from is growing up in an environment that literally did not want me to be myself. And there's so many people. There's somebody listening to this and you're in your 50s in corporate America, and the environment around you, the people in your life, so much of it, it feels like people don't even want you to be you, right? Many people feel that, I know. And I just believe in life, in the fullness of being who you are is the fullness of everything you want. And there is no bypass to that. You don't get to have everything that belongs to you without stepping into the fullness of who you are. And so that is at the core of my work. And that is why I wrote the book, because a lot of people don't know who they are, don't love themselves unconditionally, and don't feel permission to be themselves unapologetically in the world. But I know how powerful that is. It's powerful for sales. It's powerful for money. It's powerful for stuff people don't even think is related. But some of you cannot imagine how many clients you would get if you unleash the fullness of yourself into the world. It's so powerful.
Please, if you're listening to this now, like, that's got to be one of the biggest messages to take away from this. Whatever you want in life, start with loving yourself, like, to its fullest first, and suddenly, your self-esteem, your self-worth, your self-confidence, that's going to serve you in every area of your life. Get those foundations right. I just fully agree. Like, you're so aligned with everything that I believe, and it's just reinforcing some really powerful messages, which is brilliant. And you touched upon there how you built your brand like completely the wrong way around and all that kind of thing. So I'm just interested in that, because I have a lot of listeners that, are entrepreneurial, are trying to build a brand, are trying to build a personal brand and that kind of thing. What would be sort of some of the main things you could offer advice based on your experience of perhaps maybe not doing it the correct way, as you put?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I don't think I did it the correct way, but what I do know is I made a plan and I trusted it and I stuck to my path. I stayed in my lane. I think one of the things, and I really try to be careful with this in answering the questions and all of these things these days, there are so many platforms out there. There are so many tools, so many strategies. And I think it's important to realize no successful person equally gets leads, equally benefits from all of them. Even if somebody has a team, and I don't show up everywhere, but I think we show up most places now. But even if someone's showing up most places, there's a couple of things that are really working for them. And so when I was starting out, the first year that I was all in full time on my business, I committed to show up 3 times on average per day, knowing that by the end of the year, I would have shown up 1,000 times online as America's Life Coach. When I started doing that, when I committed to do that, my business was not in a great place. I barely had any clients. Finances were a stress, but I chose a plan. it was arbitrary, Matt. Like, I had no evidence. Nobody told me to do this. I didn't even know if it would work, but I had to choose something and trust it. And I did that. And 1 year later, I had filled up my client roster twice. I had more than doubled my prices. I had hit a wait list twice. And really, I mean, everything blew up. My business took off. My whole world was changed. My living situation, my finances, everything changed that year and has been, on a different trajectory ever since. So number one, make a plan, decide how you're going to show up and stick to it. And number two, don't try to be everything and everywhere. If Facebook is where you want to be, do Facebook. If Instagram is where you want to be, do Instagram. If LinkedIn is where you want to be, do LinkedIn. But find your territory and really own it and do your best with it, because none of us are experts and equally impactful on 19 places.
Yes, absolutely. And I've just literally been reflecting on this recently as like, why have I continued to make progress? Why have I continued to have success? And I think one of the main things that I've identified is just the ability to keep going without seeing tangible results. Like, not in a stupid way, not complete blind faith, but creating a plan, like you've said, trusting the process, even on the days you don't trust it and you doubt it. Because if you think about it, like, you cannot just go on this linear trajectory that's just up, up, up. Therefore, there's going to be times where you're not sure, is this right? But if you've thought about it, stick to your plan for long enough, results come. And I think actually it's one of the biggest things I've identified is a lot of people just don't stick with it long enough. Like, they choose this, it doesn't get a result in 6 weeks, so they move to the side, do something else. It's that kind of quick win mentality, that get rich quick thing. It's like, if people don't get a big result, they doubt themselves, they don't back themselves. And it's like, just stick with it. Just believe in yourself, back yourself, stick with it for long enough. Results will come.
I don't think we can emphasize this point enough. And I wanted to say one thing practically, one thing energetically here. Practically speaking, let's talk social media as an example. I had a client say to me the other day, I tried this post and I don't think it resonated with my people. And I said two things to him. And this is so important. I know how many of your listeners, no doubt, are trying to grow personal brands, business brands. I said, you got to understand. We never know what the algorithm's doing. So your post could be shown to people 3 days from now. It is way too soon after one post to conclude, didn't resonate. The other thing is, often the best buyers are those silent onlookers who reach out when they're ready. So just because they didn't like, just because they didn't comment, you really never know. And it speaks to the larger point, which is everything we create moves from cause to effect. And most people don't stay in it long enough at cause for it to make that full path and end up at effect. But you've got to stick, you got to stick with it. It's so important, Matt.
Oh, man. Literally, this conversation has been amazing. Stephen, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom. I just want to acknowledge you to say, like, it's so lovely to see somebody that's completely authentic, integral, and giving out so much value. So massive, massive thank you for your time. Just before we finish up, I've got the quick fire section, which is literally like a this or that section. So it's just whichever you go with. So here we go. Let's see what comes up. So first question, 2 coffees a day or 0 caffeine in your diet?
2.
Weights or cardio?
Weights.
City life or country life?
City, 100%.
Yeah, of course. Meditation or reading?
Reading, but both. I hate to be the entrepreneur saying both, but I do love to read, but both.
Both important, right? Okay, next one. This will be interesting with the Clubhouse going on at the moment. Is it 4 hours sleep or 10 hours sleep? No in between, you got to pick one.
10.
Build a brighter future or become more at peace with your past?
Brighter future.
And the final question, being broke but in love or wealthy and alone?
Oh, what terrible choices. I reject that. I rebuke that. And I tell whoever wrote this question that you can have it all.
Yes, I agree. I fully agree.
I'm not even willing to give energy to one of those possibilities. I'll extend the hours of sleep, but I'm not giving energy to being broke or being alone. Absolutely not.
We're coming for it all, yeah? We're just having it all. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Just before we finish, if people want to find out more about you, if they want to connect online, where's the best places? How do they find you?
Yeah, the one-stop shop is Instagram. All my links are there, as I think we're all used to by now. So DRLOVEGROVE. Come say hi. My DMs might take me a second to get to with the Clubhouse surge, but tell me you're here from Matt Hall, and I will do my best to get to you quickly.
Absolutely amazing. And before you go, the final question, Stephen, what is your definition of success?
Yeah, well, I'm going to quote Oprah because she said something and I heard it growing up. And in the midst of not knowing who the hell I was going to be or what the hell I was going to do, these words really stuck with me. My definition of success is being who I came here to be and doing what I came here to do. And if I do that, I have succeeded.
Stephen Lovegrove, thank you so much. Amazing.
Thank you, Matt.
So there you go. Wow, what an absolutely fantastic episode. A massive thank you to Stephen Lovegrove for giving us your time, your wisdom, your experience, your intellect, and so much value. If you've taken value from this podcast, please do me a favor, help me help create a bigger impact on a wider scale by sharing this with somebody that you feel is going to benefit from listening. Share it on your Instagram stories, do a Facebook post. Let's get the word out there. This is the kind of stuff people need to hear in order to empower them to be their very best version of themselves, to become more self-aware, to take more action that is serving them, and ultimately live the life that they truly desire. Your support is massively appreciated, and I'd really, really be grateful if you could help me build this movement that Rich in Success is, that's helping people live happier, healthier, more successful, and more fulfilled lives. And don't forget, we'll be back with more episodes. I've got some more great guests lined up over the coming weeks, but also I'm going to be dropping some shorter episodes, some top tip episodes, some episodes that have been taken from live content I've done over on social media. So there's going to be lots more to come over the coming weeks. Rich in Success is officially back, baby, and it's a pleasure to have you here as the journey of self-discovery and personal growth continues.
Thank you so much for listening to today's Rich in Success episode. If this episode has impacted you, there's a few things we need you to do in order to help us make a wider positive change. Please spread the word. Tell a friend that you think will benefit from our message. Subscribe to the show on your chosen podcast platform and give the show a 5-star rating and review. Don't forget to like our social media pages and tag us on your Instagram stories. Your support means the world. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time as the journey of personal growth and self-discovery continues.